suspension of the announced utility tariff implementation by government without delay. We ask, will government buckle under pressure? Also this evening, Interior Ministry denies any record of assassination attempt on the Special Prosecutor Kisie Jabin as it launches full-scale investigation into the claims. And later in the bulletin, ECOWAS activated standby force following Sunday's attempted coup in Benin, with member states including Ghana preparing to deploy troops to support the country's stabilization efforts. What are the implications for the regional bloc's credibility? We have details of all of these and more coming up within the next 1 hour, including business and sports. Before that, let's bring you the news summaries with Judith Brown. Hello, Judith.
And here are the news summaries for this evening. And former President John Ejikun Kufuor has likened the bitter rivalry in the ongoing MPP presidential campaign to his own situation nearly 30 years ago after he lost his first shot at the presidency. In an exclusive interview with the Delay Show, the former president said the plot against him was so thick that some members of the party went to the extent of spreading wild propaganda against him, including falsely accusing him of diverting campaign funds into his private accounts in the US, all in a bid not to get him to be presented again. Now, government statistician Dr. Alhassan Idrisu has said that good policy is impossible without good data, stressing that this is a reality that should be accepted by all. He stated that budgeting, planning, performance management, and policy and program evaluation all depend on numbers that are timely, complete, and credible. Dr. Alhassan Idrisu said that over the past few years, Ghana has shown that commitment and innovation can transform how a national statistical system works. In other news, 2 tourists were injured when portions of the Amedjofe canopy walkway in the whole West District of the Volta region collapsed. The facility has since been closed down. Now, there are 2 are currently receiving treatments at a nearby hospital. Fortunately, no death was recorded. The Chief Executive Officer or the CEO of the Ghana Tourism Authority, Mamefwa Hwajeto, has visited the victims. A statement signed by the Corporate Affairs Director of the GTA, Bright Asempa Chadide, said that the visit was to express sympathy about reassurance and demonstrate the authorities' commitment to their well-being. Lastly, the Ghana Education Service GES has ordered the headmaster of Joje Penny Senior High School, Joshua Vidro, to step aside from his duties with immediate effect. The directive issued by the GES on December 6, 2025 comes after allegations of the headmaster's involvement in sexual misconducts with some female students of Joje Penny SHS. Now, the statement says his interdiction is deemed necessary in order to guarantee the integrity of the investigative process and avoid any perceived interference of investigations. And that's all for the news summary right here on 3FM Nights 2.7.
Thank you very much, Judith. Let's settle for the details of the stories. Now, the Trades Union Congress is demanding the immediate suspension of the latest utility tariff increases, warning that the government needs to halt the move or face strong resistance from organized labor. Speaking at a news conference in Accra, the Trades Union Congress Secretary General Joshua Ansah described the new tariff as insensitive and called on government to withdraw them without delay. Last week, the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, PURC, announced new adjustments of 9.8% for electricity and 15.9% for water, a decision that has sparked anger among TUC and its affiliate unions. Mr. Ansah warned that if government fails to act swiftly, organized labor will unleash what it called its full wrath. Let's listen to him.
Yes, TUC has a rep on the board, but that does not stop our rep or the TUC to speak against a decision that is not in the interest of Ghanaian workers. Yes, he may be the only person from the TUC on the 11 or 9-member board. And in Ghana, you know how minority voices are treated in such board meetings. So we think that whatever decision that has been made, whether we have a rep there or not, we think that the decision is not good for Ghanaian workers, and we have to speak against it. Thank you very much. Done. We are not going to propose anything. Our priority is not even in the top-up. Our priority is in the withdrawal of the tariff because it is not in our interest.
Thank you.
The next line of action, what would you do?
When we get to the bridge, you cross.
And that is Joshua Ansahu speaking on behalf of TUC, asking government to reverse the decision. And government, I mean the PURC, to reverse the latest increase in water and electricity tariffs that are expected to take effect from the 1st of January 2026. Now, the TUC is also demanding a review of the recently announced base pay increase, insisting that the 9% adjustment is inadequate for workers already burdened by economic hardship. Meanwhile, the minority in parliament is also demanding that government immediately halt and reverse the tariff hikes. At a news conference, the ranking member on the Energy Committee, George Kwame Abuaji, described the increase as an unacceptable shock to struggling households and businesses. He pledged that the minority would use every parliamentary tool available to challenge the decision.
Why does the government ignore this reality and instead impose measures that further impoverish Ghanaians? Instead of fixing the system, the government has chosen the lazy path of shifting its failures onto already sovereign consumers. This will completely wipe out the meager 9% wage adjustment for 2026. Consequences: if the government does not listen to the call to withdraw the tariff hikes, they are going to cause 1. Escalating utility poverty, leaving more families unable to afford basic electricity. 2. Collapse of SMEs, which form the backbone of our economy due to unbearable operating costs. We are already experiencing a teeming unemployment youth in the country. Job losses as industries scale down or shut down operations. 4. Reduced productivity and competitiveness, further weakening the economy. And then 5. Heightened social and economic hardship, deepens the suffering of workers and households. These tariff hikes are not reforms, they are punishment. They are not solutions, they are symptoms of failed leadership and poor policy choices. We call on the government to immediately halt these incessant increases. The minority stands firmly with Ghanaian workers, households, small businesses, and industries struggling to survive. We will continue to use every legitimate parliamentary tool to demand fairness, transparency, and accountability in the management of the nation's utilities. Our position remains firm and non-negotiable.
So we had the voice of George Kwame Abuaji, who is the NPP MP and ranking member on the Energy Committee in Parliament. Let's go to the phone lines now, because we know that one other very important association that is averse to these new tariff hikes is the Food and Beverages Association of Ghana, and they have also registered their displeasure and asking government or the PURC to reverse this decision, and says that they are preparing a formal petition to the presidency calling for a reduction in the tariff. Reverend John Awuni is the president of FABAG. Rev, good evening. Thank you for your time.
Hello, good evening, and good evening to your viewers and listeners.
What are the key concerns you have here? It is expected that beginning every 5 or so years, there is a major tariff announcement, and then there are the quarterly review ones. But, and as an association, certainly you must have been aware and or even consulted by the PURC that they need to get inputs into how much percentage they need to let, utility users pay. First of all, were you part of the negotiations, or were you consulted by the PURC during that exercise?
Yeah, good evening once again. We were very much consulted by the PURC. We went there and we made a presentation, and we were very clear with them that we are against any tariff increment because Ghanaians are already paying very high level of tariffs. Ghana is among the highest tariff-paying countries in the sub-region, in Africa, and even in Europe in terms of commercial and industrial tariffs. We are at the top there. And so Ghanaian businesses are already struggling, including even residential consumers.
Right.
And then also we said that the ECG in particular was suffering from serious inefficiency and certain level of corruption and mismanagement, high losses. Their technical and commercial losses was in an unacceptable limit. Technical and commercial loss of about 32%. Their revenue collection rate was as at last year stood at 43%. And we said that with these figures, it was very unacceptable for the government and for PURC, for that matter, to increase tariffs because the tariff rates are already extremely high. And so if ECG wants extra money, let them go and improve upon their revenue collection. If you sell goods of 100% and then end up collecting only 43% of the goods, then you cannot be considered as a serious person. If you want money, go into the market and collect the debts that are hanging in there. Then also, you cannot go and buy goods, 100% of the goods. By the time you get to the market to sell, you have lost 32% of it. You have started already on the path of losses. So we said that what the ECG needs, particularly and for the water company, was efficiency. They need a reset. They need a realignment. There were major structural misalignments in these institutions. Indeed, at the time they were doing this presentation, when they asked ECG people how much it costs to install a single-phase meter, they didn't even know. Senior officers, as they were, did not even know. And so we said that it was very unacceptable for them to do because in any case, higher tariffs is not anything new. It has been tried by His Excellency John Ajekum Kufuor's era, tried by His Excellency John Atemio's era, tried by His Excellency the first time, John Mahama era, tried by His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, and now His Excellency the John Dramani Mahama.
Then that should tell you that clearly there is a challenge with the institution itself when it comes to its own organizational structure and revenue mobilization, like you indicated. So, is it not, fair for them to say, you pay something so that we can keep our operations running while we seek other ways of improving our revenue collection, like you're suggesting?
Very good question. With the performance of the ECG at the Parliament's Public Accounts Committee, it didn't show their performance did not show that, or the expose did not show that this was a struggling institution. An institution that overran its budget by 189%. An institution that allowed its expenses to balloon from 1 billion to 8.3 billion, representing about 700%. It's not an institution that shows that they are struggling. Go to ECG, find out how much they are paying national service personnel compared to other institutions.
Right.
So clearly, look at their salaries. Look at the attitude of the workers. This cannot be swept under the carpet of tariff increment. Because in any case, it's not as if the tariffs are already low. The tariffs are already very high, as I indicated earlier. So what the government of the day need to do is to look into the eyes of ECG that has more or less held this country captive, more or less held captive consumers and businesses hostage, and reset that institution. Because that institution has almost been privatized by individuals.
Right.
And we cannot continue to run an institution in that particular manner, punishing consumers for their incompetence, punishing consumers for their corruption, punishing consumers for their inefficiency.
Right. So now let's talk about the direct impact of these new tariffs on your business. FABAG, we are told, is the food and beverage Association of Ghana. So specifically, you deal with food and beverages. How exactly are you impacted by these new tariffs?
This thing, if they humbly, respectfully do not suspend this thing, it will directly attack their inflation targeting they have been doing. Those inflation figures will start rising up next year because food inflation will go up. They have increased cumulative 25.7%. It will go more than that. Food prices will go more than that in the coming year. Transport fares that cut food and all that will also be affected. They will also go up, and that will be another matching increase. And then cost of production of locally made goods is also still going to go high. And then the 24-hour economy thing will die at arrival because that is driven or is clearly driven by demand. And so if the demand is already low, as we are already experiencing, the food sector is already experiencing about 70% fall in demand. The beverage industry, manufacturers, both alcoholic and fruit juice, all of them, they are suffering. People are crying and they are not buying. Commodities, the commodities that used to sell about 10,000 metric tons a year are clearly selling like 4,000. People that used to sell about 4,000 are selling like 1,000 metric tons a month. And these institutions are struggling.
Right.
You don't have to come in and burden them with tariff and higher tariffs again. That clearly will not even yield any benefit to the utilities because it is just going to be another pouring of water into a leaking bucket. That bucket will never get full.
Right. So I'm sure negotiations are still ongoing where, although the PRC has come out with these tariff figures, you are hopeful that they will change their mind or at least review the percentage increase. They either do that or what exactly will happen? What should we expect from FABAG if government is unable to reverse this?
I am very much happy that the TUC is also joining this campaign and saying this is suspended. Because as a matter of fact, the government cannot increase wages by 9%, only to increase utilities by 25.7% cumulatively. Where does the government expect workers to get to fill the gap? Like sending a child to go and buy you food 30 cedis when you have given the child only 10 cedis. That will amount to promoting corruption in the system because at the end of the day, people will have to do ways and means to generate the extra 20 cedis to go and buy that food. And so if the government allows this tariff to pass, it will amount to official approving corruption in the system.
Right, Reverend. Maybe my last question before you take leave of us. I'm also quite concerned about the fact that if we are unable to support these utilities, in as much as they are inefficient, allowing them to exist without the requisite funding might end up collapsing the institution. And imagine that we have a struggling power sector that fully collapses. Then the impact would be quite dire. Do you not agree? And so beyond the encouragement that they should become more efficient, how do you suggest as a business entity that ECG and even Ghana Water operate to the ultimate benefit of all citizens? To the ultimate benefit, number one, get ECG to go out on the streets tomorrow. Get the prepaid meters, get the meters working. Get institutions digitized. Get meters available Get teams put together so that they'll prosecute people who use illegal connections, people who consume power without paying. Make sure that the attitude of the ECG workers change and the utilities generally change from behaving as if they are doing us a favor to an institution that is customer servant. These are things that they need to work out, improve on their revenue collection. You can't continue to collect revenue at 43% and ask that they should pay more. People pay more. How will you even go and collect that extra payment when you cannot even say that coming events cast their shadow? So clearly you cannot collect what you have already put there. Why should they increase more? Sure. So there are efficiency things that they can easily do practically and ensure they should work at reducing massively the technical and commercial losses. These are not losses that can let any institution thrive.
32% commercial and technical losses are very, very unacceptable. 43% revenue collection is very, very unacceptable.
Sure.
Let them go out there and ensure that they collect all the hanging revenue that is in the market there. That is wherever it is. Let them work and then collect those money. When they collect those monies, I am very much sure that we will not be talking about tariff increment, but rather tariff reduction. Let them work efficiently. Let them ensure that they become more prudent in their expenses. You cannot overrun, your expenses cannot increase from 1 billion to 8.3 billion. That's not a struggling institution at all.
Reverend, we are grateful that you made time to speak to us on 3FM this evening.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much. Reverend John Awuni is president of the Food and Beverages Association of Ghana, FABAG, and they are supporting the call by the Trades Union Congress for a review of the new tariffs announced by the by the PURC, which is the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, which would take effect from the 1st of January 2026. So if you are a consumer of power and water, what are your thoughts on this? Do you also support the call for a reduction or a review of it? Mind you, the PURC has also clearly stated that these increases that they have announced is to only help them become more efficient and accountable to you, so that at least when you turn on the switch, you would have power, consistent and stable and reliable. When you turn on the tap, you have water flowing through them. That is why they are asking for this extra money. But if you listen to the argument of Reverend John Awuni, they can do more when they are more efficient rather than just deciding to almost always tax the consumers, which indirectly is you and I. So do let us know what your thoughts and comments are on our social media platforms. On Facebook, just look for 3FM 92.7, and on Twitter as well, look for 3FM, and on YouTube, where we are streaming this bulletin, you can also send your messages right through to us. We're shifting our attention to some other stories now, one that doesn't seem to go away anytime soon. The Interior Ministry says it has no record of any assassination attempt on Special Prosecutor Kisie Jabeng, directly contradicting claims made by the Office of the Special Prosecutor. In a statement issued today, the ministry said its checks show that no police station or state security agency has any report suggesting that the Special Prosecutor survived 2 attempts on his life. This follows comments by the OSP's Director of Strategy and Communications, Samuel Appiah-Darko, or Same Darko as many know him, who told Accra-based Joy TV that Mr. Ejabeng, who is the OSP, had escaped 2 assassination attempts, and further alleged that he himself, that Same Darko, was handcuffed and beaten by 17 police officers. The Interior Ministry says the claims are serious and could undermine public confidence in Ghana's anti-corruption fight. It adds that Mr. Jabeng reportedly indicated the alleged threats happened before this year, which means it happened around 2024 or before. Yet there is still no official documentation to show that whether they reported to the police station or any security agency or not. Now, the Interior Minister has now ordered a full-scale investigation into both allegations of assassination and the alleged police brutality against Same Darko. So what exactly does all of this mean? Let's speak to private legal practitioner Austin Bracco Powers, who has joined us on the phone. Mr. Bracco Powers, good evening. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, good evening, Martin. I hope you're doing well.
Not bad at all. Thanks for your time. To start with, what are your thoughts on this decision where the Interior Ministry has taken interest in these allegations of attempted assassination on the OSP? That's quite serious, isn't it?
I think, Martin, it's important to situate the conversation because threats of this nature are not unusual in jurisdictions where anti-corruption mandates confront entrenched interests. Indeed, assassinations and targeted attacks rarely resemble Hollywood dramatizations. If you be mindful, generally security analysts and public officers worldwide face similar risks, even in our own country. So, part of the ministry's decision to initiate clarity and seek further information is appropriate because allegations of this magnitude, if left unaddressed, risk generating public anxiety, institutional mistrust, and I shudder to say unnecessary speculation in an already charged environment. But after hearing the allegation made by Sami Darko, my immediate reactions were twofold. So I asked myself, was a formal complaint lodged with the Ghana Police Service or any competent security agency? And two, what became of the investigative processes that should follow such allegations? And the statement by the Ministry of Interior provides the clarity that there is no evidence whatsoever or record indicating that a formal complaint was filed.
And that is where the concern is, right? That, I mean, as an investigative body themselves, if they even invite anybody or there is suspicion of a threat on anybody's life, they would immediately advise that you go and report so that there is a record of it. So if the head of such an institution has two assassination attempts on his life, and it didn't even happen in 2025, which is ending, means the whole of 2025, we didn't hear anything like that. Per the records, it happened before 2025. And between then and now, it is now that we are hearing about it. It tells you, I mean, that definitely paints a totally different picture, that people who ought to know what to do when such a threat is on their life, they didn't do that. Does that not question the credibility of the allegation?
Martin, I think there are two things in play here. The first thing is that I would take it as an omission, which is both puzzling and consequential. Because, like you were intimated, an allegation of this nature, of this magnitude, should have found expression in a formal complaint registered with the appropriate security agency. And the second part is that, Martin, in approaching this issue, the public discourse must be done in a courteous manner. Why am I saying this? Don't forget that Ghana has previously witnessed an unsubstantiated security-related claims. You remember the allegation by Phyllis Nakoyu Okuno, which the Interior Ministry found to be unsupported by fact. So I agree with you in one part that if these latest allegations fall into a similar category, the effect will be profound. The credibility of the Office of the Special Prosecutor may suffer further erosion at a time when public confidence is already fragile. So I agree. And it is puzzling that they didn't report this matter. Maybe their excuse may be that because of the regime that was in place. But even that is not an excuse, because I believe that, Martin, if they had lodged an official complaint with the police, even if the state could not act on the recorded allegations, at least there will be record. Even if no action followed, an evidentiary trail would exist, providing a basis for oversight, accountability, and potential review. So I think it was a lapse, an omission, a major omission, which is both powerful and consequential. And the OSP and Sami Darko should have themselves to blame for that.
And Counsel, so talk maybe a few more questions for you before you take leave of us. How should the Interior Ministry or government, for that matter, approach this subject? I mean, for Sami Darko, for instance, to say that he was handcuffed and assaulted by 17 officers and nobody heard of it, that is quite concerning. So how do we approach the subject so it doesn't look like we are just trying to find evidence to dismiss them, but rather we are trying to find evidence to support and give them the necessary protection, which they probably should already have?
Yes, I think, Martin, the thing is that the OSP has already been given a security detail. And if he feels that the security detail he has is not sufficient, he knows what to do. I'm convinced that the approach by the Interior Ministry is the right one. We need to set up a fact-finding committee. We need a fact-finding committee to unravel the truth, to interview them. And I think the onus is on Ise Jabin and Sami Darko to provide coherent, verifiable, and contemporaneous evidence to support their narrative. Because such an approach should not be merely procedural. It has to be essential to maintaining public trust, institutional integrity, and the rule of law. So the path taken by the ministry is appropriate. Well, we need to now unravel whether indeed the allegation that they made. And Martin, let me admit, sometimes people tend to make allegations on the spur of the moment. Sometimes they make it just to whip public sentiment and interest. So there are cases where allegations are made which could not which cannot be grounded in any fact maybe later. If this ends up to be one of them, then that will have a consequential impact on the OSP. So I believe the path taken by the Ministry of Interior is the right path. Let's uncover the truth. And when there's evidence, then they can trigger the next step. That is where they will now have to get the culprits and arraign them before the appropriate court.
And I like how you ended your last submission, which is that if evidence is found and the investigation kicks in, they arrest the culprit and then let due process deal with them. On the contrary, if it turns out that there really isn't any evidence and these allegations are spurious, how should government or the state deal? What are the legal processes that the state must take against those making the allegation?
I mean, allegations of this nature should not be taken lightly. It is a major allegation which has major issues for security of the state. So if it is found to be unsubstantiated, I think the person who made the allegation should be taken through the right process, because that is the law. Fear and panic, putting fear and panic in the society or in Ghanaians is a criminal offense. And when you make comments that are not substantiated, there are consequences, legal consequences. So I think we should not be taking this issue lightly. But Martin, it begs the question: what happened to Nakoyo? Nakoyo Okuno, what happened to her? Particularly when she made her main allegations, which were later found to be unsubstantiated. Right. I think we must be able to build a society where, irrespective of where you belong and where you come from, when you are wrong, and you are taken on. But there must not be selective justice. And that is where my concerns are, Martin. But anybody, if it is found that these allegations are really based of evidence, then the right process, then Samidaku and the other, and either the OSP, but particularly Samidaku, the one who made the allegation, should be taken to the right process.
Right. Austin, pleasure talking to you as always. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And Austin Braco Powers is a private legal practitioner and also sharing his thoughts on these very serious allegations made by the Director of Research and Communications for the OSP, Samidaku, who says, amongst other things, that 2 assassination attempts were made on the life of the Special Prosecutor, Kisie Jabin. And beyond that, he, Samidaku, was also assaulted by some 17 police officers while he was in handcuffs. So it tells you that their lives are really in danger, probably because of what the job they do. But beyond that, why is it that something that happened before 2025 has not been reported to any of the security services or agencies? Because that's what the Interior Ministry is telling Ghanaians, that their checks prove contrary to what Samidaku is saying about something like that happening, because there's no record anywhere showing that these 2 men have had either an attempt on their life or an assault on their life. So, I mean, it's a very murky situation, but it's good that the investigations currently ongoing regarding that. Do let us know as well what you make of it, and we'll be happy to share your thoughts with the world. That is on our Facebook stream and then also on our YouTube channel. 3FM is the station, 92.7 is the dial. This is Hot Edition. And we're going to the courts now, because the Accra High Court has varied the bail conditions of the NPP Ashanti Regional Chairman, Bernard Ntwibo-Esiako. Many of you know him as Chairman Wontumi, after noting that the investigators failed to comply with the directives. Chairman Wontumi, who has pleaded not guilty to permitting 2 persons to undertake mining operations on his concession without obtaining the ministerial approval, had initially been ordered to report to investigators as part of his bail conditions. In court today, however, the presiding judge indicated that the investigators had repeatedly failed to comply with the orders and directed Wontumi to now report directly to the court register. Now, the court has also dismissed an application by Wuntumi's lawyers seeking additional disclosures of some documents from the prosecution. Andy Apiakubi is lawyer for the NPP's Ashanti Regional Chairman, Chairman Wontumi. Let's listen to him after he came out of the courtroom.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, let me congratulate you once again for your continued support. We cannot do this alone. I'm happy that you are always with us. Today, we have filed a motion seeking orders directed at the prosecution to provide us with copies of any assignment from either the first accused person or the third accused person. The first accused person being our own Chairman Wontumi, and the third accused person being the company Akwanta Mining. From the debate today, Attorney General wants the court to believe that there is no such deed of assignment nor a sublease. According to him, Attorney General, the transfer of interest in the land to the prosecution witness is by word of mouth. And so this is where we are in the case. The court has adjourned the case management conference to next Monday, the 15th of December. So when we come on the 15th, we will go through the management, case of management, and pick a date for mention and subsequent for trial. There was this.
Andy Apiakubi is the lawyer for the NPP's Ashanti Regional Chairman, Bernard Ntwibo-Esiakum, popularly known as Chairman Wontumi. Let's shift our attention to developments within the ECOWAS sub-region because the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, has activated its standby force following Sunday's attempted coup in Benin, with member states, including Ghana, preparing to deploy troops to support the country's stabilization efforts. A communique issued in Abuja on December 7 directed the immediate deployment of the force to Cotonou. The mission, comprising personnel from Nigeria, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, and Sierra Leone, is mandated to help Benin's government and Republican Army safeguard the constitutional order and territorial integrity. On Sunday, Nigeria dispatched jet fighters, or I should say fighter jets, and small group troops carrying out surveillance and rapid intervention operations coordinated with the Beninois authorities. The Nigerian deployment is expected to be reinforced by incoming contingents from the other ECOWAS states. The intervention unfolds as the bloc moves ahead with broader security reforms, including plans to mobilize some 1,650 standby force personnel in 2026 to counter growing instability and terrorism within the West African sub-region. Let's speak to security consultant and the executive director of the West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism, Mutaru Mumuni Mukhtar. A very good evening to you, sir. Thank you for your time.
Hello, good evening to you and good evening to your listeners.
This response by ECOWAS seems quite swift. Wouldn't you agree that for the first time in a very long time, reports of coup or attempted coup is happening, and then in less than 48 hours, a group of troops are deployed to go and try and curtail the coup? How does this come to you as a security watcher?
Well, this is obviously a very commendable feat by ECOWAS, and we need to applaud that. It has been quick, it has been precise, it has been sharp in terms of its capacity to thwart the coup that was in the process. In fact, this is the ideal situation that many have been calling for in terms of ECOWAS's capacity to serve as a regional organization fully in charge of security, to deter actors that are seeking to destabilize the order within West Africa. And the current situation is symbolic, not just symbolic, but it's a clear representation of what we've been calling for. And I think that ECOWAS will take advantage of that situation and build that capacity in a manner that is sustainable in dealing with other situations that may occur. And in fact, we believe that this is not going to be the last situation of a potential coup situation in West Africa, given the pervasive situations of vulnerabilities within the West African context when it comes to, regional order and security.
Right, and as we speak, the current government says that the situation is under control. What is your reading of the political situation in Benin, and what role else can ECOWAS play in ensuring that they are able to get to the bottom of what is happening in Benin?
Clearly, at this point, it appears that the President alone is in charge and is fully in control of the situation in Benin. But you cannot often rule out any other actors that may be or would have been negotiating for the reality of the coup situation. And as you would notice in most coup situations, these are, youngsters and upstarts in this game. And so they actually failed because they were not able to build that capacity to serve as a destabilizing force to take charge of the situation. But in the process, you may have other elements who may be in alliance with this, small group of people, and they may be, involved in carrying out some mischief against the current system. But on the whole, we have not picked up any kind of data or information relating to any significant level of threat in this situation. But ECOWAS would need to stay the course in terms of mediating on and negotiating a complete takeover of the situation, not just in function, but also in terms of goodwill and support of the Beninian people for the current president, and to ensure that this, sustainable situation of control by the current leadership in place.
And finally, before you take leave of us, how concerned should the rest of the ECOWAS member states be? A few days ago, we all saw what happened in Guinea-Bissau, and now we are talking about Benin. We have already lost Mali, Guinea and Burkina Faso, although negotiations are still ongoing in the background. But generally, the concerns of instability within the sub-region doesn't seem to go away. It quiets out after a while, but then it recurs, or we hear reports of these kinds of surprise coup attempts. How concerned should countries like Ghana be? Because at the end of the day, we end up bearing the brunt of the influx of these victims of these coups or, unfortunate development when it happens in their countries.
At the moment, we at the West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism, in our own analysis of the situation in the last 2 years, have come to the conclusion that West Africa is under siege, and that in broad terms, no country within the sub-region is immune to a situation of coup or possible coup situations. We have seen, if you look at several, sources of data, most of the countries that are at the bottom of the Human Development Index come from within the sub-Saharan, African space. All these coup-ridden countries at the moment, they all run very low, including those who have not had coup situations. And so we are looking at a region that has huge levels and pervasive levels of vulnerabilities that could elicit enough goodwill for coup situations to happen. And so all of us should be very concerned about the developments currently. And even including our own country, Ghana, that has been long celebrated for, for peace and stability. We need to be significantly worried about not only the situation of influx or the consequences of coup or instability in the region on our own country here, but even our own internal vulnerabilities serve as significant and adequate, vulnerabilities that could be used as a pretext to cause mischief and we should all be concerned about that.
We are always grateful that you could make time to express your thoughts on these issues. Thank you so much, sir.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And you heard Mutaru Mumuni Mukhtar, the Executive Director of the West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism, sharing his thoughts on what we heard over the weekend. In fact, just yesterday, what happened in Benin, or the Republic of Benin. And you should know that Benin is not too far from Ghana. I think the Togo is between Ghana and Benin. And then there's also Benin and then Nigeria. So we are all sort of on one line. And it is important that whatever is happening in one country should be of concern to every other member state. And like you heard the resource person say, in the local parlance, if your colleague's beard is on fire, you are better off fetching water and placing your beard in it, lest you also have fire on your beard and then we all get affected by these developments. But we need to nip these coups in the bud so we can have a more stable West African sub-region. But your thoughts are always welcome. Do send them to us and we will definitely do well to share it with the rest of the world. You're still listening to 3FM 92.7. We're live around the world on 3news.com. That's our website, and streaming on Facebook and on YouTube. Stay with us. When we return, we'll let you know what's happening in the world of sports and other stories.
This December, Accra exhales at Labadi Beach Hotel, where the ocean kisses the rhythm and paradise meets the beach. And for those who want
3FM 92.7 3FM 92.7 3FM.
Surrounded by good people and golden light, this is your reset, your freedom, your joy. 3FM All White Party, the beach edition, where paradise meets the party. Labadi Beach Hotel, 28 December. Lock it up. The years been long, deadlines, hustle, pressure. Now it's time to breathe, to dance, to feel again. The music hits, waves crush, energy rises. You're surrounded by good people and golden light. This is your reset, your freedom, your joy. 3FM All White Party, the beach edition, where paradise meets the party. Labadi Beach Hotel, 28 December. Lock it up. The years been long, deadlines, hustle, pressure.
3FM 92.7 3FM
Hello, good evening and welcome to the business segment on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Coming up tonight, governance experts warn delayed constitution of new Fiscal Responsibility Council could undermine enforcement of Ghana's debt to GDP ceiling and public spending rules. I am Bismarck Ausa. This headline story and others lined up for you. Please stay. Thanks for your company. Now to the details. Ghana's new Fiscal Responsibility Council is yet to be fully constituted, raising concerns among governance experts that delays could weaken efforts to enforce the country's debt and spending rules. The council, created under amendments to the Public Financial Management Act in 2025, is designed to provide independent oversight of government finances, including monitoring a debt to GDP ceiling and ensuring discipline in public expenditure. My colleague Michael Obodu has the details.
Although the law establishing the council has taken effect, the government has not yet appointed its members. Analysts warn that without a functioning board, Ghana risks slowing progress on fiscal reforms, many of which are crucial to meeting IMF program commitments and stabilizing the economy. At a high-level policy dialogue in Accra organized by the World Bank, the Economic Governance Platform said it expects the council to be in place and to publish its first report by the middle of next year. Coordinator Abdul Karim said the country cannot afford afford further delays.
We are hoping that by the end of the first quarter of 2026, that board will be in place, and by mid-year, they should have at least produced their first report so that we have a handle on what is happening within our public finance.
The World Bank says stronger oversight is especially important as state-owned enterprises continue to pose significant fiscal risks. Practice Manager for West and Central Africa, Tracy Lane, welcomed recent efforts to tighten accountability in the sector and urged government to regulate SOEs more rigorously.
It's very much the case that the board and the directors of SOEs have a duty to the owner, and the government is the owner, right? So in order to perform, you need to be responsive to your KPIs, your performance, and it is quite compelling if somebody's not performing to say, well, I need to change.
With public debts still high and new fiscal rules now in force, experts say a fully operational Fiscal Responsibility Council will be central to improving transparency and restoring confidence in Ghana's economic management.
And that was a report by my colleague Michael Obodu. Now, the Minister for Energy and Green Transition, John Jinapor, says closer regional cooperation in power generation and transmission is critical to ensuring reliable and affordable electricity supply across West Africa. Speaking at the 2025 West Africa Energy Cooperation Summit, he highlighted how pooling resources through the West African Power Pool allows countries to trade surplus power, develop infrastructure more efficiently, and expand access to electricity across the region. The minister emphasized that deeper collaboration under the West African Power Pool would also give member states access to cheaper financing for energy projects, helping to develop both generation facilities and the transmission network needed to support universal access to electricity.
If you look at our various economies, we have cycles of peak demand and cycles of off-peak demand. Sometimes when Ghana has peak demand in certain months, Nigeria would have low peak demand in those months because of festivities and occasions. So that affords Ghana to sell its excess capacity to Nigeria or to, say, Burkina or Mali, so that in times when we need more and they have less, we can also take that from them. But even more importantly, if we pool resources together, then it means that through West African Power Pool, we can seek cheaper financing, which means that we can develop our infrastructure, not just the generation capacity, but the transmission network to ensure that we achieve universal access to electricity.
Meanwhile, the energy minister has praised Nigeria for its regular gas supply to Ghana, which has helped stabilize power this year. He added that Nigeria could address its own electricity challenges by applying the same efficiencies to its domestic power sector.
I see very, very positive trends from Nigeria. Some 2-3 years ago, you couldn't count on Nigeria for gas supply. But I don't know what they are doing. They are reforming. They are doing a lot of work there. And since January to date, we've had consistent flow of gas from Nigeria, no interruption. And so my advice to my Nigerian colleagues is that if you can get it correct with the gas, you can adopt that same strategy and get it right for the electricity sector.
And that was Minister for Energy and Green Transition, John Jinapor, ending the business segment on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7 with me, Bismarck Ausabilishan. Is here for sports. Please stay.
92.7 3 FM. 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 92.7 3 FM.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the sports segment here on the 3FM Hot Edition. My name is Bill Shen. Some more reactions have been coming in since Ghana were drawn in Group L of the 2026 World Cup. The draw, which took place on Friday, December 5th, 2025, saw Ghana placed in the same group as England, Panama, and also Croatia. Now, the general manager of MG Sports, Michael Otieje, believes this is a manageable group and believes that Panama Panama may be the biggest opportunity for the Black Stars to earn at least 3 points.
I think it's all right. I think it's not a worst thing. Like Utuado said, it's manageable. Ghana needed. Ghana was always going to get somebody from Pot A. My hope was that it was either USA or Canada. It wasn't to be the case. So it meant that anybody Ghana drew was going to be a top-tier team, and we've drawn the fourth best-ranked side in the world, England. So that was something we couldn't do much about. I think Panama gives Ghana potentially the option of potentially the biggest source of 3 points, and I am really convinced, having seen Ghana in previous World Cups and with the way my idea of the way things work, that whilst Croatia have a very good team, Croatia are not at the peak of their powers, and that game is one of those games that the Black Stars could use. But in major tournaments, when I look at Senegal in 2002, I look at Cameroon in 1990, I look at Ghana against Czech Republic and the rest, I get a sense that major tournaments are made for teams like Ghana and the rest to step up there and cause one or two surprises. And that's why I really think the Black Stars should not shut out as the option of playing against England and Croatia. I think it's one of those groups that the Black Stars could do well in.
That was Michael Otieje reacting to Ghana's placement in the 2026 World Cup draw. Now, some big news coming in is that Liverpool have dropped Mohamed Salah ahead of their Champions League tie against Inter Milan, scheduled for Tuesday. Now, Mohamed Salah was initially dropped, put on the bench for 3 consecutive games, and delivered an explosive interview on Saturday night after Liverpool drew 3-3 with Leeds. And so here is a report looking at what has been happening with Mohamed Salah and Liverpool.
While most teams are fighting to hold on to their players as long as possible before the Africa Cup of Nations, Liverpool appear to be doing the exact opposite with Mohamed Salah. The Egyptian forward has been benched for 3 consecutive matches as Arne Slot attempts to revive Liverpool's season. Following the 3-3 draw with Leeds United, his third straight game on the sidelines, Salah made explosive remarks about the situation. A 33-year-old said, quote, "It seems like the club has thrown me under the bus. That's how I'm feeling. I think it is very clear that someone wanted me to get all the blame." He continued, quote, "I have said many times before that I had a good relationship with the manager, and suddenly we don't have any relationship. I don't know why, but it seems to me that someone doesn't want me at the club," end quote. Liverpool and Slot have since responded by omitting Salah from the squad ahead of their crucial Champions League match against Inter. He is also expected to miss the weekend fixture against Brighton before joining Egypt for the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations. Since arriving in 2017, Salah has arguably been Liverpool's greatest player of the modern era, scoring 250 goals and providing 116 assists in 420 appearances across all competitions. The former Chelsea man has won both the Premier League Golden Boot and the Playmaker Award in the same season, topping the charts for goals and assists. His 190 Premier League goals place him 4th on the competition's all-time scoring list. But this season, Salah has struggled with just 4 goals in 13 matches. So after years of brilliance and a legacy cemented in Liverpool folklore, is this once beautiful union finally coming to an end?
That was a report on Mohamed Salah and his situation with Liverpool. That's it for the sports segment here on the 3FM Hot Edition. And also, that brings an end to the entirety of the 3FM Hot Edition for Monday. We'll be back at the same time on Tuesday with a lot more updates. Until then, have a great evening.